room here right now. So is there anyone that has thought, well, first of all, who listens to podcasts here? If you want to raise your hand. Did I only see one hand raise? Is there anyone that listens to podcasts? Okay, I see a couple people. Good. Who has ever thought about starting their own podcast? Okay, I see a couple hands as well. Okay, that's good. So hopefully by the end of today, you guys will have the motivation as well as the knowledge to be able to make your own podcast on whatever topic you want. Okay. I find that these days podcasts are very popular, and you may think that the market is oversaturated by several podcasts out there, but always think that you are a unique individual, right? And so, yes, there could be thousands of podcasts out there, even thousands of podcasts relating to the topic that you want to talk about, right? But because we're all unique in our own different way, you can bring something different to the podcasting market. So keep that in mind as we're going through this presentation. All right. So, whoops. A little bit about me. I know there was an introduction, but just diving into a little bit more about me. So I have a PhD in chemistry. I'm also a pharmaceutical professional. I'm also a nonprofit founder, and I'm a wife and mom. And I'm also the host of Lessons from a PhD podcast. So those are, I would say, the staple things about me. And you're going to see how I kind of used all of those into forming a podcast that I wanted to share with the public. Okay, so my podcast name is Lessons from a PhD, and I started that in February 2024. So I'm honestly new to the podcast game. I wouldn't say that I am a professional podcaster. I'm not at all. My podcast only has about 14 episodes and about 60 followers and about 600 listens across Spotify and Apple Podcast. So like I said, I'm only about 2 years into podcasting. I'm actually currently on a podcast break, which I'll talk about a bit more. But it's something that I decided to start because I saw that there was a need for more information just in terms of navigating your PhD, branching from, academia to industry, if that's something that people are interested in. And so I kind of centered my podcast around that. Okay. So if you ever wanted to start a podcast, the first thing that you should consider, even before thinking about your branding colors, the name, or anything, the very first thing that you should consider is clarifying your purpose and your voice. So, what that means is you can ask yourself these various questions. So, number one, who is your audience? Who is the audience that you want to speak to through your podcast? Is it your peers? So people that are among the same education level as you, age level as you? Is it future employers? Is it that you're trying to maybe break into a field, so you want to start talking and discussing about that field? Is it maybe community, different types of community? Maybe women in STEM, women in tech, maybe a sports community or any other community? Or is it a global audience? Do you want to reach people that are beyond Rwanda, beyond Africa, beyond, all over the world? So I think that's the first thing that you guys should think about. The second thing is, what lived experiences or expertise do you already have? So, like I said before, we're all unique. We all bring something different to this world. What are the lived experiences that you've gone through that you think can impact people, or that you think maybe similar people are going through the same things, and you can offer your advice or your experiences? What expertise do you have? I see that you guys are all in school, right? So you've obviously learned something in the past few years that you've been in school, or even outside of school. What expertise have you had? Any skills that you want to share as well? And what I always say is that if you want to start, maybe go through, different ideas in your head, different topics, and pick about 1 to 2 core topics that you can center your podcast around. Okay. And so we're going to do a little activity right now. I want you guys to think about 1 or 2 core topics that you would want your podcast to be centered around. And I want you to create one sentence to define your purpose and your voice. Okay, so here's an example based off of my podcast. So my example is that I am a PhD graduate working in industry, and I want to help other graduate students navigate through school and the workforce. Okay, so that's what my podcast is centered around. So I want you guys to do the same. Maybe we'll give about 5 minutes for you guys to think about it, and then we can hear a few examples if that's okay. So I guess when you're done and you want to share, you can just raise your hand and then we can hear a few examples.
Okay, so we have few people who wants to share. Can we go ahead or we still wait?
Yeah,
All
you
right.
can go ahead
So
when anyone's ready.
okay, so I'll give to Ukachi.
Okay, hi. What I wrote here was mastering masters, helping students learn better and become more productive as Africans schooling in Africa. I mean, postgrad school. Yeah.
That's great. That's a really good topic. Awesome. Is there anyone else?
All right, thank you so much for that. So we have Rhoda here. Rhoda also wants to share.
Okay, I think for me, the idea would be making like science and engineering sound fun. Sometimes you'll be in class and what they are saying sounds so abstract. So if I were to have a podcast, I would like make those concepts relatable and realistic.
Yeah, no, so that's a
All,
great topic.
all right. So we also have Lucia.
Thank you, Anna. If I'm starting a podcast, it wouldn't really be in STEM for the start. Generally, I think I would love to like talk, especially to women out there who like there are a lot of wars happening in Africa right now, destabilizing communities and stuff like that. And I'm kind of a victim, and it gave me a break, like a 4 years break in my school journey, and then me coming back here and being on my feet to continue is like, I think somebody needs to hear this story and also get to encourage the others that are going through the same thing. Like, you can get back here. So even before STEM, that is one of the first thing I want to put out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And your podcast does not have to be in STEM at all. Like I said, it's your own lived experience. And just like you said as well, there's probably someone that's going through something similar, right? So that's amazing. It's a good topic.
Okay,
Maybe
so
we'll
we
take
have the
one
last
more.
person. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, one more.
hmm
Okay. I don't know if it counts, but yeah, I have a podcast. So, and it is centered around helping young people. It's centered around identity and purpose, leadership and excellence. So I think I just got bored one time and then I I told myself I was just going to speak to my peers and then young people. So as I learned, as I grew, I decided to talk about it. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Someone already has a podcast. So you know what you can do? You can share your podcast with everyone else in the room, right? And we can all take a listen and support you. So that's amazing. Awesome. So yeah, I've heard so many great ideas, right? Like I said, we all have different experiences and different expertise that we can share. Even if you think it's trivial or if you think that everyone already knows this, I'm sure there's someone out there that wants to hear what you have to say. Okay. So once you have clarified your purpose in your voice and you've maybe picked one or two topics that you want your podcast to be centered around, the next thing now is to choose a podcast theme. So we live in a world that is very visual, right? And everything is aesthetics. Even on social media, everything is aesthetics. You want everything to look good and to be inviting. So I think that this is also a very crucial step of choosing, of creating your podcast. Okay. So just as it ties to your personal brand, how do you want yourself to be represented in terms of your brand colors? Okay, what brand colors do you think define you and also define the topic and maybe the podcast that you're talking about, that you will start? So, the one thing about brand colors is that it must be engaging and inviting because, like I said, we're in the world of aesthetics and everything looking aesthetically pleasing. And especially if you're going to promote it on social media, we know that people are just scrolling, scrolling, scrolling on their phone, right? So as people are scrolling, you want something to stand out to them and you want someone to take a moment to look and be like, oh, what is that? That looks very interesting just because of the colors. That's the first thing that's going to attract someone to your podcast. Okay, so here's an example. When I first started the podcast in 2024, over here on the left, I don't know if you guys can see my pointer, but over here on the left, this was my brand color. I went for a very like neutral, like nudish kind of look. Okay, I had like a brownish kind of look. And made like a few episodes. I think I started off with maybe like 5 episodes when I first started from the podcast, and then I took a break. And so after I came back from that break and I wanted to continue the podcast, I wanted to revamp everything because I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? This isn't that inviting. Like if I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw this podcast, I feel like I would just keep on scrolling. Like I wouldn't look twice. So I wanted to revamp it and kind of think, okay, what colors would be attractive to the audience that I'm trying to cater to? So my podcast, like I said, is called Lessons from a PhD. And even though it can be for anyone that is going through graduate school, a lot of the topics that I speak about will be pertaining to women, right? Like women in STEM. So I'm like, what are some very like feminine and like fun kind of colors? And so that's why I changed my color scheme to this kind of pink and I don't know what you call this color, like an aqua kind of color, right? Just because it looks very, it kind of stands out. Okay. And then another thing as well is that I made sure that there was a theme. So, yes, there's a color theme, but I also made sure that when I posted on social media, and I'll talk about promoting your podcast in a bit, but every single thing was consistent. Okay. So, what I mean by that is every single time I release an episode, this is the format that I used to release an episode because I want people, when they see this format, they automatically think lessons from a PhD episode is out. I have to listen. If I'm consistently changing my theme and I'm consistently changing, the graphic that I'm using to promote my podcast, then I'm going to confuse people and they're not going to link a certain theme to my podcast. And so that's one thing. Consistency is key. Consistency in terms of your brand colors, consistency in terms of your the formatting that you use to, I guess, create your graphics, right? So that is key so that when people look at that, they automatically think your podcast, whatever your podcast is called. Okay. So maybe we can take a couple minutes and think about some of the brand colors. We'll just start with brand colors. Some brand colors that you are going to use. It can be maybe one color, two colors, three colors. We'll take a few moments so then maybe like a minute. Okay, and then we'll maybe get two people that can answer. Okay, so today is very practical. By the end of this, I want everyone to have a layout in terms of what their podcast is going to be and how it's going to look. All right, so we'll take a minute and then come up with some colors. Okay, can we maybe have one example before we move on?
Okay. Okay, I would prefer sky blue.
Great. Why did you choose sky blue?
I feel like when I try to do websites or something, it's more catchy, and I love the color as well.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Okay, maybe one more.
Okay, one more.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would go with terracotta. I would go with
Oh, okay.
terracotta.
Okay, terracotta. Nice.
What?
Nice. That's a nice color.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, like I said, doesn't have to be anything super fancy, but the colors you should put thought into your brand colors. Okay? So, the next thing on the same topic as your podcast theme, you also want to decide what is the format of your podcast. So, there are several formats that your podcast can take. It can either be solo, so it can just be you sharing your thoughts, you speaking to your audience, maybe your opinions or such, right? Or it can be interviews where you can have someone join you on the podcast and you can interview them and ask them several questions. It can be storytelling as well. So this goes back to you or you and another person are telling stories or relaying your information in a way that is story-like. Or it can be a panel style where you can have several people come on your podcast, all giving their different opinions and answering questions. Okay. So your podcast format can either be one of these formats or it can be a multitude of them. All right. So, like, for example, for my podcast, I started off as solo, where it was just me sharing my opinions, talking about my story, talking about the things that I went through, my experiences. But then later on, I realized that, I've gone through pretty much all of my experiences, but there are other people out there that may have different experiences that people can also learn from, and also different expertise um, from me that can also cater to my audience, right? And so I started doing interviews and I would mix it up. Sometimes I would do solo podcasts, sometimes I would interview people. Okay. So that's another thing that you guys should think about. What podcast format do you want? Um, and I think that this should be something that you should put thought into and should also be consistent so that people know what to expect every time a new episode comes out. They know it's either going to be you telling a story or they know it's either going to be a panel style or interview and such. Oopsies. Okay, and so last point about your podcast theme is now the name. So again, this is something that you should put a lot of thought into is the name of your podcast. And your name should reflect the identity or the mission of your podcast. And I put here in brackets, use Chat GPT because it can help you come up with a lot of different variations of maybe your topics. That's exactly what I did. I first knew exactly what I wanted my podcast to be about, right? And so, like we did in the very first slide, where I told you to come up with one or two core topics and come up with a sentence that describes your podcast, put that into Chat GPT and ask what are the different names what are different examples that I can name my podcast based off of this topic or based off of this theme. It will spit out several examples. Hopefully one will be attractive to you and that you can choose. If you already have an idea of what your podcast is going to be named, that's also great too. But like I said, this is very important because when people are searching for podcasts to listen to, so say I'm on Spotify and I'm in the mood to listen to a podcast about sports, I'm going to type in sports podcast. So if you have a podcast that's about sports, you want the title to reflect that. Okay. It can't just be something random. I wouldn't name it Anna's podcast because no one's searching for Anna's podcast, you know? So yeah, always just think about if there is someone that is searching for a podcast about my topic, I want my name, the name of my podcast, to come up in that search. All right. So that's how you should be able to um, find the name of your podcast or create a name for your podcast. Oops. Okay, so once you have chosen your podcast theme in terms of the brand colors, your format, and then the name of your podcast, the next thing is to start making episodes. All right. So I always say before you publish anything online, maybe create 3 good episodes. Now, the episodes don't need to be long. I think my first episode was maybe like 10 minutes. And my first episode was just me explaining what the podcast would be about and why I decided to start a podcast. And then, my follow-up episodes are maybe like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? So podcasts, they don't have to be an hour long, 2 hours long. You can work your way up there if you want it to be that long. But sometimes I think that just the bite-sized episodes, are good. I always say quality over quantity, right? So you want to have a good episode that has a lot of information that is engaging to your audience and be consistent. So, to be completely honest with you, this is something that I need to work on. When I was doing my podcasting, I was not consistent at all. One month I would post, actually, no, I think when I first started, I committed to, I'm going to post every 2 weeks. Or no, I even think I said once a week, right? Which was super ambitious. And we all have busy lives, right? We're not just solely podcasters, we all have other things that we do. I could not keep up with once a week at all. So that's when I changed it to monthly podcasts because I thought that would be better for even just my lifestyle. So once you decide on how often you want to post, just be consistent. You should be consistent in publishing episodes. And that's crucial to retaining your audience because every single month on this day, your audience should know that a podcast is coming out. If you say, I'm releasing an episode every first Monday, you release that episode. If you say, I'm releasing an episode every Friday or every other Friday, your audience should know that every other Friday, that episode is going to be released because they're looking forward to it. Okay. Like I said before, you should be consistent in your theme so your listeners know what to expect every time they tune in. So that being, the podcast style, the colors and brand and everything. And the one thing I find is that being reliable builds trust and keeps your audience coming back for more. So if they know that, Anna posts a podcast every single month and I always post every single month, then I'm building trust with my audience. And if you think about relationships, trust goes a long way. Okay. So consistency is key. Okay, next thing is when you're creating your content, make sure that it's engaging. But like I said, start small. Doesn't have to be anything large, doesn't have to be a long episode, but always put a lot of thought into how exactly or what exactly you want to talk about in your episode. Okay. So if it's something where you are speaking about different interesting topics, make sure that you're well researched in those topics because this is going to the world, right? Once you put it online, I think the previous speaker, Patient, she also said this. Once you put it online, you can't take it back. Okay, it's online forever and everyone has access to it. So always make sure that, what you are talking about is well researched and it also makes you credible as well. And don't be afraid to share your unique insights. Like I said before, we're all unique. We all have a different way of thinking. We all have something that we can add to the world. And a lot of times people think similar to us as well. So don't be afraid to go out there and to share your unique insights to stand out. The second thing is engage your listeners by addressing their questions, feedbacks, and interests. So, this goes along with, posting on social media as well. When you post an episode on social media, or you can do it on a YouTube as well, always try to engage your listeners and ask them, feel free to share your feedback or share questions on this topic or anything you want me to address in the next episode. It really helps with engaging your audience. You don't need expensive equipment or a huge audience to start. when I started, I just bought a very cheap microphone from Amazon, which I think was like $20. I set up with my phone first, and then I tried to use my computer. So I switched between my computer and my phone. And then I had a ring light. Don't have to have a ring light, but I just thought it was helpful with the lighting. And then I had a phone stand as well, and that's all. Right? So you don't need any expensive like cameras or equipment or set up a whole studio. You can work your way up there, but to start off, you really don't need anything expensive. Okay. I'm sure everyone here has a phone and maybe a computer, right? And maybe a good pair of a headset with a microphone that you can use. Another thing is to use interviews to connect with mentors, academics, and industry leaders. The one thing I found is that when you have an interview format and you're inviting someone else into your podcast, that also helps with engagement and it helps with pushing your podcast out there because you're not just speaking to your audience, but that person that you're bringing in to interview also has an audience as well, right? So they can share with their community, you share with your community, you can reach more people. And also, it's nice to hear different perspectives. Right? Everyone appreciates different perspectives. So I found that my episodes that were interview format really had more engagement versus episodes that were just by myself. And another thing is visibility is key. So use this to slowly build your personal brand. So again, this is all part of building your personal brand. And there's one thing of creating your podcast, but then there's the other thing of putting it out there. Okay. If you create your podcast, but you don't advertise it, who's going to know that you have a podcast, right? Who's going to know that you've created this amazing episode that is going to touch a lot of people? No one. So I know that sometimes, and especially as Africans, we feel weird putting ourselves out there and maybe awkward, and we're hesitant to put our content out there because you don't want to be judged, you don't want people commenting, you don't want anyone to see you. But like I said, everything that you say in that episode could touch someone and could help someone. So why are you keeping it to yourself? Right? Don't be afraid to advertise it, post it on social media, put it on your CV as well. When you're interviewing for a job, bring it up. Oh, I have a podcast that is A, B, C, and D, right? Use it as your personal brand to define who you are because it's part of you at this point. Another thing is don't let analytics discourage you, quality over quantity. So building your personal brand, it's a long game, right? It's not like once you start a podcast, you're going to have 1 million followers and 1 million listeners. Like I said, I'm about 2 years in. I only have about 60 people subscribed to my podcast and about 600 listeners. That's not that much. Okay. And I remember even listening to, I don't know if you guys have heard of Diary of a CEO podcast, but it's a huge, huge global podcast. And the founder, whose name is Steven, I remember he was talking about his story about how he grew his podcast to where he is. There's like over 1 million followers every episode, or 1 million listeners every episode. And he said that he started very small. He started with his phone in his bedroom. The lighting was not good at all, but he was just consistent and he kept on posting, kept on coming out with good quality episodes. And then eventually, I think he's like maybe 4 years in to his podcast, he's built his podcast to a global brand, okay, where he's even started a business and a company out of it. So like I said, don't let the analytics discourage you. You may not have a lot of people listening at first, but that's okay. Just continue doing it, continue being consistent. And I wouldn't do it for specifically, gaining followers, but do it because you love it and because you want to share whatever you're sharing with the world. Okay. Don't want to take too much time. I don't know how much time I have left, but let me just go through these last couple episodes. The one format that I spoke about was interviews, right? Now, guest appearances and cross promotion can really help with your engagement and help building up your podcast. Okay. So when you invite guests that have established followings, that can tap into your audience. Okay, so like I said, if you're doing interviews and you're inviting guests, you're not just catering to your audience, but you're also catering to their audience as well. So you're having more impact. So that's one strategy that can use. Cross promote as well by appearing on other podcasters' show. So one thing that I did is that I have a few contacts that also have podcasts. So sometimes we did joint episodes where we would merge both of our podcasts together, decide on a topic that caters to both of our audience, and talk about it. Okay, so excuse me. So you're not just posting to your platform, but you're also posting to their platform as well. Okay. Um, Another thing is get into the podcast community. So with social media, you can literally just search up podcast or podcasts or STEM and women in STEM podcasts or whatever your topic is. See all the different podcasts that have a similar topic to you. Add them on social media, repost their things, maybe get connected with them, build some form of community where you say, I will help support you by posting your podcast. Okay, they will help support me by posting my podcast. Again, that is another way to broaden your reach and to put yourself out there so that more people can listen. And collaboration. I always find no matter what you're doing, doesn't even have to be podcasting, collaboration is key to just growing your brand and growing whatever you're doing. Okay. And it introduces your podcast to new potential listeners. So again, this isn't about getting more followers, but it's about who can I touch with my podcast, right? Who can I help with my podcast? The more listeners, the better, because you know that you have something to contribute and to share with your audience. Okay, so now leveraging social media for exposure. So this is another part of podcasting and building your brand is to use social media platforms to share your podcast episodes, quotes, behind the scenes content, and teasers. Okay, so usually what I did is every single time that I posted an episode, I would post it to social media in like the graphic that I showed you, like new episode. And attached with that graphic would maybe be a snippet of the episode. Okay. So if you want to do a video podcast, you can upload it to YouTube or you can just do snippets on social media. I eventually want to start doing full on video podcasting on YouTube. It was just a lot of work for me because it was a lot of editing, but I want to work myself up to that because I find that a lot of listeners like video podcast, right? But instead, what I did is I still recorded a video, but I would just take clips of that video and I would post it to social media to promote. Okay, so you can do that. If you don't want to do video and you just want to do audio, that's completely okay. There are other creative ways that you can just post an audio clip on social media. You can post quotes from your podcast episode on social media as well. Like it says, behind the scenes, teasers. And yeah, so just different ways that you can promote. Engaging with your followers by responding to comments, right? And so this is how you build your community around your podcast is responding to the comments that people put under your podcast, starting conversations on social media, and using relevant hashtags. Okay, so with relevant hashtags, those are ways that if someone is interested in a certain topic, your podcast will show up on their algorithm through hashtags and even with more comments and starting conversations. Okay. If you do want to also push your podcast, you can collaborate with different influencers or other podcasters on social media, like I mentioned before, to broaden your reach. Okay, so the last thing that I have for you guys is that I've created a podcast starter checklist with you today because I want everyone to have what you need to make your own podcast for those that are interested. Okay, so I will share this, maybe I'll share this with Samuel after with SWIS Africa so that they can distribute it to all of you guys. But these are the different things that you need to set up your podcast for success. Okay, so just kind of what we talked about today. So number one, defining your podcast. What is the name of the topic? Who is your ideal listener? And so on. choosing your podcast format, name and position of your podcast, set up your simple tech, plan your first 3 episodes, record and edit, publish your podcast, and then share and build your personal brand. Okay. So if you guys are able to go through all of these different steps, by the end of this checklist, you will have a podcast that you're ready to share with the world. And, you can share it with whoever you want, build your community, and add to your personal brand. Okay. So I hope that was beneficial to everyone. I hope that everyone now has the tools and the everything that you need to build your podcast. And I'll be happy to take any questions that you guys have. Thank you so much.
Please, can we appreciate Anna? Stand up and appreciate.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was a very, very, very wonderful session. To see people who are willing, especially women who are willing to share, it's a gift. Sincerely, it's a gift. And your time and effort, we do not take it for granted. Thank you so much. So quickly, I'll just take 3 questions because we are short on time. Just 3 questions. If there's anyone among us that want to ask questions, okay, we have 1. Any other person? Question? Okay, 2. 1 more. Okay, so let me just start with Deborah.
Okay. Again, my name is Deborah. Thank you so much, so much, Anna. Thank you for breaking it down for us. And thank you for this checklist. I'm really going to go back and, you said something about not about sharing our podcast. Okay, I was one that said I had a podcast. Right? I mean, I still have it, but I stopped sharing. I stopped, I think I just got really shy. I didn't want people to, it was like a baby of mine, and I just didn't want people to criticize it. I just wanted to pour my mind somewhere and just have it there. Well, a couple of people know that I have it, but as I meet new people, I stalled in telling them about it, right? I think the last time I uploaded something would be either 22 or 23, right? Yes. I started in 2020 during the lockdown. Now, if I want to come back, right? Let's say I want to come back, and at what point, at what point should I say, okay, should I just say I am resuming or, right, like, how do I go about it? Then secondly, so Ajara has left, but she asked a question about joining your podcast together with video. I know you touched on it. How that, because she was like, I thought podcast is supposed to be audio, right? Yes, and I know that a couple of persons are starting video podcast and all of that. So how do you switch your audio? Do you have to, let's say I have recorded a podcast, an audio podcast now, and I want to, add graphics. Should I just put the audio on graphics, or how do I navigate from being an audio podcaster to visuals and graphics? Thank you very much. And thank you again for this checklist. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so those are very two good questions. To answer your first question about coming back, so similar to yourself, I was doing the same, where I think I recorded like 5 episodes in 2024. I took a long break. I came back, recorded maybe like another like 10 episodes, and now I'm currently on break because life just got busy, right? So there's a strategic way to do this because like I said, you want to be consistent. You want your audience to know that you are always releasing a podcast and you're serious about it. So what I've decided to do is to do seasons, right? So season 1 of my podcast, So you said that you started during the pandemic and you stopped in 2022 or 2023, right? That could be season one of whatever your podcast is named. If you want to start again, a way that you can brand it is, oh, we're now entering season two of your podcast. Okay. And then maybe commit to like 5 episodes in season two or 6 episodes in season two. And then if you want to go on a break again, you can. Because at least, it doesn't show inconsistency, but it just shows that you are just breaking up your episode breaking up your podcast in different seasons. Because if you think about TV, right, the TV industry, whenever you're watching a show, there's season one of, I don't know, what's an example of a show? I can't
Bridgerton,
think right now.
Bridgerton, Bridgerton.
Bridgerton, exactly. Yes. You have season one of Bridgerton. And then after season one, they usually make us wait like a year until season two, right? Because they have to film and do everything. So everyone is used to having a season, taking a break, coming back for another season, taking a break. So you can do the exact same thing. Okay. So I hope that answers your first question. And I think you were also saying about how you were shy to come back or to promote, right? And so, like I said, when you're promoting, like sometimes I'm also shy to publish my episode, but I literally just close my eyes and I press publish and I just, release it because I always think that if I'm not going to put it out there, if I'm not going to promote it, I'm doing my audience a disservice because they don't know that I have this information to share. So at the end of the day, it has nothing to do about you, right? It has everything to do with your audience and who you want your podcast to be for. So always remember, you're doing it for your audience. You're not doing it for yourself. That's kind of what helps me. Your other question was about video, right? Going from an audio to a video podcast. So it just depends in the way that you are recording. So whenever I record audio podcasts, I don't record the video. I'm just recording an audio through, if you see on my checklist, I have various platforms that you can use. So you can use Spotify for podcasters. There's also GarageBand. If you have a MacBook, you can use GarageBand to record your audio, or you can use Zoom also, right? And so you'll just have an audio file. If you want to pair it with video, now you need to actually take a video. So you can use your computer or your phone, take a video of you speaking, and then when you upload it, you have to upload the video content with your audio content, typically on YouTube. Okay, if you want to use YouTube as your platform. If not, just upload the video on your computer, and you can also separate the video from the audio as well, or you can just edit it into clips also. Okay, so there's no problem going from an audio to a video. I've done a mixture in the past. Some recordings are audio that I do, and some recordings have a video with it. If I'm too lazy to like put on makeup and like make myself look pretty, I'll just record an audio podcast, to be completely honest. If I have the time, then I'll do video podcasts. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do, whatever is comfortable for you. But I hope that answers your question.
Okay, my question. Okay, my question is basically about like editing software for audio. So like I have like experience with editing, but I want to know like the one you use to edit your audio to have like that crisp, clear. I know it's get a good mic first. I think I have a decent mic, but what can I do to get that very crisp? Or what do you do to get that very crisp audio? Because it's a little hard to hold someone's attention when they cannot see you. So if your audio is very crisp, you can hold the attention for longer. So how can I get that? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the mic has a lot to do with it, right? And so every single time I record a podcast, I always do like a quick check where I'll record like a small section, play it back to make sure that the sound is crisp. But to make it even better, I use GarageBand, which is on a Mac. So yeah, with GarageBand, it's just like an editing software that you can use to edit music, audio, whatever. And there are different tools on there to edit your audio. So I'm not a GarageBand expert, to be honest. If I do need to edit something, I'll search it on Google, or I'll even ask ChatGPT, like, how do I edit this to make my audio more crisp? Or I'll look on YouTube of like tutorials, right, to edit as well. So GarageBand is my go-to. There's also another platform called Podcastle. So I used to use Podcastle. It's pod and then castle. And so that also has some editing tools as well that you can use. So yes, I definitely agree that the mic it plays a big part. But also, you know, I think also the way that you speak as well, right? And so podcasting has also helped me in terms of presenting, because I realized before that, like, when I first recorded some episodes, I was very monotone. And if there's no visual and people are just listening to you, they don't want to listen to someone who is very like, hi, my name is Anna. This is my podcast. No, 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 no. Like very monotone. You know what I mean? And so I think it's also a good way to help you like develop your speaking skills as well, right? And so um, just like um, making sure that your voice is going up and down and it's engaging, and because people will want to listen to someone who is more engaging if it's just an audio and not video. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
So we have the last question for the.
All right. Thank you so much, Anna. My name is Nimat, and I just wanted to say, so Patience had talked about YouTube, and you've talked about podcasts. What do you think about posts on blogs, like Medium posts and the rest? Does it give, like, do you think it gives more visibility to reach like wide audiences too, or?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like any outlet that you have, like if you know that your audience is on that blog and visits that blog quite often, 100% post and promote it there. It doesn't just have to be Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, wherever you think that your audience is. Even if you're catering to students, you could even, I mean, you guys are in school right now, right? You can even promote your podcast across campus as well. You just want to reach your audience. Okay, so whether it be blogs, that's good. I mean, YouTube is fine as well, but again, YouTube is oversaturated. So you can't just post on YouTube and think that everyone is going to find your podcast. You still need other ways to promote it, right? And so that's when blogs come in. That's when your Instagram comes in, your LinkedIn comes in, different community websites come in, right? So yeah, I think blogs is a great way.